What is up, geeks and geekettes? It's another episode of the Countdown City Geekcast. We are back again. My name is Ted, aka Steady. Joining me for the moment, we might have a few other geekcasters joining shortly. You know him as Retro Ray. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, guys? Ready to talk some news?
Absolutely. And we got a fantastic show for you guys. We're going to be talking all about that incredible, hopefully, you guys agree, third episode of The Last of Us. We also have some geeky weekly headlines to discuss. And we're going to be talking about the potential DC slate that James Gunn has promised we will be getting before the end of January 2023, which by my count is only 26 hours and 7 minutes away. So we might get it at the 11th hour tomorrow night, and he'll still be correct by keeping his promise, but that remains to be seen. But first, want to talk about some quick box office releases you guys have probably seen and a few events that are coming up. First of which, 80 for Brady. If you're a Patriots fan, if you're a Brady fan, if you're a Grace and Frankie fan, if you're just a fan of these fantastic ladies, 80 for Brady opens this Friday, February 3rd. I highly recommend you check it out. And then another fantastic movie that looks like it's M. Night Shyamalan's return to um, just the masterful director writer that he is. Knock at the Cabin. Knock at the Cabin, which features Dave Bautista. And that's going to lead us into our first topic of the night. Be sure to check those movies out, and I highly recommend Knock at the Cabin. A review will be out later this week. But that's going to lead us into our first topic of the night: potential DC Studios projects that should be announced by James Gunn within the next 26 hours and 6 minutes. We're just going to be counting it down the entire
Oh, hell
night.
yeah. Major.
Listen. This has been a whirlwind, a roller coaster of emotions. There's been drama, there's been arguing, there's been debates all over social media. But James Gunn is actually the type of guy to weather the storm. It really seems like it takes a lot to kind of, you know, knock him off his path. And so I think he's going to hold firm on what his plans are. Um, but we're here to kind of discuss what we think might happen, but also what um, we want to happen. What projects are we really interested in seeing James announce within the next 26 hours and 5 minutes? That's the real question. To kind of tee this all up, there was an interview with Dave Bautista, as I mentioned earlier, and this is what he had to say about his buddy and pal, James Gunn, and the universe that he's looking to build. Quote, I have had conversations with James about that, referencing any potential roles for Dave in the future. But I think the direction he's leaning in, completely rebooting that whole universe. He's starting from scratch and starting younger and fresher, and I think you need to do that. End quote. Retro Ray. Dave Bautista says he's basically too old to be a part of the future DC universe. How does that make you feel, man? I feel like you're missing out by not including Dave in any potential future projects.
Well, I mean, okay. You got Batista's age, his age.
Dude's only like 54, I think.
Yeah, but you're keeping, you know, Aquaman. Well, he may not be Aquaman. Maybe Lobo. but you're going to keep him.
Right?
Why not? You know what I mean? I mean, because you got the technology, you could make Batista. I mean, if you're going to make him Bane, he's going to wear a mask anyway. He's got the body. You're not really going to see his face if you go that route. But it's this 26 hours is going to be a big toss up to see what they're going to do.
Yeah. I agree. And I have been a big proponent of Dave playing Bane in a future solo film, future Batman film,
True.
future Legion of Doom film. Like Bane can be in a number of projects and it would be just fine.
Yeah.
You could put him in a Nightwing movie. You could do a number of things. I think Dave is the perfect dude to play Bane. He's got the size, the stature,
Yeah.
and he's got the acting chops. The dude can do no wrong. I've loved Dave in everything he's been in. My favorite movie of his just so happens to be I Spy. If you've never seen I Spy, it's incredible. It shows you his range. It's not just an action flick. There's a lot of heart in it, a ton of comedy, a lot of emotion, and he kills it. Dave should be Bane. Even if it's a fan film, he should be Bane.
Yeah.
So that was my hope always. The more important story behind all this, James Gunn, who has not flip flopped, but he's been very careful about his word choices regarding how much of a reboot we're getting. Dave is saying total reboot, hard reboot, everything goes, fire sale, that kind of a thing, right? And Legacy of Nerds in the chat saying, "Yo, what's going on, brother? It's good to see you." Um, I am always going to be interested and intrigued what a masterful writer like James Gunn's going to put forward. I will always be disappointed that we will not finish the Snyder Cut and any potential plot or storylines that should have been continued from that. I will support what's going forward, but I will always want to see how it all could have ended up with executives who were competent at Warner Brothers, and just going from there. Um, Rebooting the entire thing, I'm not sure how I feel about it just yet. I feel like Gal, she should stick around. Ben, I would love for him to stick around. Um, Jason Momoa, he's apparently doing something that
Yeah.
he's extremely excited about. Everybody says it's probably Lobo. It probably is. Who else? Who else? Who else? I want to see more Cyborg. I want to see more Ray Fisher as Cyborg. A complete reboot feels like it's too excessive. It's too extra. But I suppose Gunn wants a fully realized universe that he has total control over. And if I was in his shoes, I probably would do the same thing. Only because it is a clean slate. You're kind of not just rebooting the universe, but you are resetting the expectations of your audience. And not a lot of there's going to be some folks that are going to be harder to get on board, but it's most likely better in the long run. And 4 or 5, 6 years down the road, we might say something like, hey, this is working out for them. They've been putting out banger after banger. The box office is looking pretty good. Perhaps a reboot was necessary, but we'll never know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, let's talk about what potential projects you'd like to see other than what we've already know about the Batman 2 sequel, Aquaman 3. There's probably another one in there somewhere. What are some other projects that you hope James Gunn announces tomorrow or within the next 25 hours and 58 minutes.
Well, from what I've been reading on the internet, some people are stating that he's gonna go with the Legion of Superheroes. Now, he goes that route, of course, if you're a comic follower, put him out back in what was it, 1958 in Action Comics. So it's basically Saturn Girl, Lightning Boy, and Cosmic Boy. That's when they were first introduced. It's basically them coming from the future, taking Superboy into the future, kind of, I guess, kind of like the Terminator. Well, not the comic wise, but in Smallville, they basically come back in time because it changes. They're trying to get Clark to become who he's supposed to be in the future. So it kind of has that Terminator feel where they're coming back in time. They can't tell him what he can do. In the Smallville show, they talk about like, you can't fly yet. And he's like, what? It's kind of like, if they go that route, I can maybe see. But with this Flash movie, if this movie wipes out everything and it starts a timeline over, and that's where they start off, it's going to be a big toss up to see where it goes. I mean, because he's also posted pictures of him reading, he put a picture of Kingdom Come. So it's like, is he going to take from Kingdom Come, Legion of Superheroes, and try to kind of do what Marvel did, where, they took from the Ultimate Universe plus the current universe and they just kind of took bits and pieces. So it's a cool story, the Back to the Future stuff, coming from the future to the past with the Legion ring, go to time travel. I mean, these 26 hours is going to be very interesting to figure out what he's actually going to do. But I would love to see the Legions. It's a pretty cool idea. I mean, if you're a big time travel fan, it's definitely like, I'm big in time travel. I love Back to the Future,
Yeah.
love Terminator. So that coming back from the future to fix what happens, because the future's changed, and then in the modern one, it has Brainiac tied to it, which is he's a good guy in that verse instead of the bad guy. So the window is huge if James Gunn, because like I said, you think about it, if you're a true comic book reader and you read Guardians of the Galaxy, the original, they have nothing similarities from the current movie to the actual Guardians of the Galaxy from back
I
in the day.
agree.
You know what I
I
mean?
agree. And you never hear people complain about that, right? People
Exactly.
complain about, oh, this movie's nothing like the comics. Oh, this character's nothing like the comics. Where were you guys when Guardians dropped? I was the only one
Mhm.
saying, like, hey, this isn't like the Rocket we know. This isn't the Star-Lord we know. Like, but it was like nobody cared. For some reason, it got a pass. But whenever
Yeah.
Superman says a sentence that is a little off, or Batman like breathes the wrong way, everybody throws a tantrum. But Guardians, no, Guardians could do whatever they want. You're 100% right, man.
Yeah. And like I said, you think about it too, like Groot. If people love baby Groot, but if you were to see how he really looked in the comics, people would probably be like, "Oh, that's not cool." But like I said, you can't. It's the same thing like Harry Potter. That you kind of, you want them to follow it to a T, but then when they don't do it correctly, you got the people who read the books that are mad. You can't please everybody. You
Can't.
know what I mean? So it's like you
Impossible.
got to give and take. Yeah, not everybody's gonna be happy, but I'm very interested. These next 26 hours are gonna be huge, and the only thing is now, who are they gonna cast as the young heroes? You know what I mean? Who are you gonna get as a young Superboy? Who are you gonna get to replace Gal Gadot? Now, mind you, maybe Gal Gadot will be later down the line
Sure.
as you work your way into that. Same thing, because Lobo plays a big role in Superman in general. If you watched any of the Superman animated series, Lobo's pretty huge in that animated series. Um, so the window of the opportunity to do what James Gunn and his mentality is. You think about it too. You look at what he did with Cena. You know what I mean? My wife doesn't like Cena, but when she
He watches
watched,
Peacemaker, right?
yes, she watched Peacemaker and she was like, man, she liked Peacemaker. So, like I said, James Gunn can make a character make you love the character. You know what I mean? Even if you didn't like him.
Legacy Nerd says Bane has to be the same way he is on Harley Quinn, though. LOL.
Yeah,
Beautiful, beautiful. I absolutely love the Harley Quinn series. I'm actually I haven't watched the previous season, and we talked about it last week. They are going to do a Valentine's Day special, so be looking out for that. February, I want to say 12th is when they're going to drop that one.
yeah,
Legacy Nerd also says, I think it's hard to launch a DC reboot without focusing on the Trinity. Those will be the focus because everything spawns from that. You're not wrong.
yeah,
Ray talked about what he thinks is going to happen. Here's what I think. And it's probably the one that everybody is also expecting. Tomorrow, hopefully, we get something related to the Man of Steel. What would I want? I'd want them to say Henry Cavill is gonna have one last hurrah, then fly off into the sunset. Doing something heroic and epic like he should, because he's the best Superman we've ever had. Um, Everybody who loves Christopher Reeve is like yelling at me right now, but I would love for them to say Henry's gonna do something. Do I think that? No. What I do think is they will announce some sort of Superman project. Probably not the Michael B. Jordan project, um, with the spin-off or the multiverse Superman. I think that he would probably talk about a younger Superman, a younger Clark. He did post that one photo where he's like drinking coffee and he's got an All-Star Superman book on his table or something like that, which is a great story. I think it would be fantastic to do something along those lines. I wouldn't mind that whatsoever. So, if you ask me, All Star Superman probably looking good right now. If I was a betting man, I'd bet on something like that to be announced. And will they call it All Star Superman? Probably not. That would be interesting, but it would just probably be a loose adaptation like everything else has been. I mean, even Marvel's Civil War was like a loose adaptation, was nothing like, the comic book arc or the storyline. Um, if you ask me again, I would say that if any of these characters had something interesting coming up, I think Green Lanterns would be probably a project they would announce sooner than later, only because there's been so many scripts, so many projects in development. Like, there has to be something along those lines, and that feels very James Gunnish, to do something funny, something um cosmic, right? With the Green Lantern Corps. Hopefully it focuses on Hal Jordan. I wouldn't mind something around John Stewart. Um Anything but Guy, right? Anything but Guy Gardner. Anything but Guy I think is fine. I say that now, but maybe he'll come up with something pretty spectacular. We got a one Green Lantern movie like forever ago, and it was mid. It was, average, and unfortunately didn't really resonate a whole lot with people. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. Whereas you've had 3, 4, 5 Superman films, I'm not even counting right. You've had, it feels like 10 Batman films. We've had a couple of Wonder Woman movies. Now we're already gonna have a third Aquaman movie. Let's jump into the Green Lanterns and let's do something with them. I feel like James would like to do something that hasn't been touched a whole lot, and the Green Lantern projects or story arcs or the comics, there's a lot to explore there, especially with all the rainbow colored rings that are across the universe. Like, we've only seen two so far in live action form, green and yellow, but they all got them there. Let's see. I think we need another opinion about this matter. So let me just spin my magic wand here, which is actually a pen. And let me bring on another guest here. Abracadabra. Hey, look at it's Matty B.
Hey, welcome to the program. Sorry, I was finishing The Last of Us, so I'm sorry for being late. It's Lauren's birthday today, so cooked some crab lip.
Why are you even here
Yeah, I
then?
was gonna say.
Well, because just like with her show, the show stops for nothing. Okay, either you're about it or you're not about it, and I'm about it. I'm about it actually. I'm about it squared. But no, have you guys done The Last of Us yet?
We haven't yet, but don't skip too far ahead. Shout out to Lo. Happy birthday. She's clearly a ride or die chick because she's letting you jump on a stream on the night of her birthday.
Yeah.
I feel kind of horrible, but I'm gonna buy you a present, Lo. I don't know what it will be, but I'll purchase something, then I'll give it to
He
you next
sends
time I
he
see you.
sends her merch.
How did you
A
know?
welcome pack.
Listen, I'm gonna get you caught up really fast. So
Yeah, yeah.
Dave Bautista did an interview. He's got a movie coming out this week, and he basically spilled the beans and said James Gunn's rebooting the whole damn thing.
Yeah, he got denied for Bane, right?
And he's like, I'm and my old ass can't be in it. So what are your thoughts on A, Dave sort of being aged out, and B, they're basically doing what we were kind of anticipating, expecting, dreading, some of us. Full reboot, everything goes, fire sale, flash sale, fire sale, you know?
No, no,
What do
I
you
get it.
think?
I mean, what they're doing makes sense. Now, it's not the only way to do it, though. There's two ways of doing this. Either you burn the entire field, you carpet bomb the whole thing, and say, um, we're starting fresh, brand new, and these are rebooted stories and they don't have any sort of continuation with the old timeline. Or you can do the passing of the guard, which is what I think that a lot of DC fans wanted, was that sort of passing of the guard thing. Let us say goodbye to some of our favorites before you introduce somebody new. But it seems as if James Gunn is just going to do the carpet bomb, say, hey, boom, this is it, brand new. But I don't hate it because, again, a chef doesn't enter a kitchen without his knives. These are he wants to cook this meal himself. He wants it to be prepared in the way that he makes it, and he doesn't want to have to adhere to old recipes. So I'm here for it either way. But I can see why there's backlash on one side, and then the other side is a little bit excited about a reboot. But I think he could have gotten away with the passing of the guard. I mean, does that?
I'm with you. I think that there was a way to reach the maximum potential of a passing of the torch, and you could have sailed the old crew off into the sunset the right way. Not the right way, but in a dramatic fashion that would have been somewhat pleasing to everybody. And maybe right. That would have been pleasing to everybody, and I think that would have been more challenging, but it would have satisfied the majority of the folks of your general audience or your diehard fans, and it would have been, it would have been what's what I'm looking for,
Well, you know how kind of they did with Iron Man in the
yeah,
Avengers. You remember, like they sailed him off into space, and he's basically gone.
yep,
They did this with Christian Bale and Batman, right? Like the kind of. So I mean, you can have those old heroes sacrifice themselves to save the world for this new generation because they can trust in them to sort of pass on the mantle.
yeah. I agree. No, I wish it would have happened that way. It was going to happen that way actually before Black Adam dropped, and depending on who you ask, flopped. The plan was we're bringing Henry. Ben's gonna be in Flash and doing some stuff. Gal's gonna show up a couple of times, and then now it's like, are they pulling all those scenes out because you don't want to give anybody too much hope about what the future is going to hold? So it is odd. So that was kind of the previous goal, but now it's like, no, we just need to get out of Dodge as quickly and as swiftly as possible. Legacy Nerd also says the only thing we may get that will be on its own is Green Lantern. Potentially, I do think. Oh, he got one more comment. They will do John Stewart, but if they are smart, they will do Guy Gardner. No guy, no guy.
But I don't think anything should be released on its own. I think
Yeah.
one of the big failed issue. I mean, is Ryan Reynolds not a funny actor? Did he not kill it in Deadpool? The people who casted him into Green Lantern, I'm sure, had the exact same thought as that. But when you separate it and isolate it in its own thing, it gives it much more potential to fail, in my opinion. Attaching it to a universe, having everything sort of coincide, and maybe potential team ups and that sort of thing. If they do the Green Lantern, which hopefully they actually get that going, but I want it to be a part of this overall DC universe, or else I think it'll flop like the other ones did.
Well,
Yeah,
like my thing, I think this is my opinion. This is my opinion. This is my thoughts just from being such a geek.
shoot.
So, with this Flash movie,
Oh,
so multiverse, how the collapse of one universe, you know, what if that collapse of that universe is the same universe that, you know, Affleck, and Cavill are in, and that universe collapse and everything gets destroyed? And this through the whole reboot of them introducing these new Superman, new Batman, who are trying to prevent it from spreading. You know what I mean? Maybe that's just my opinion.
No,
'Cause-
and I would like that, and that would follow along a trope of kind of how Marvel does their movies.
yeah,
But one of the things I did not like about the Snyderverse was that it was heading in that sort of multiverse direction.
yeah,
The stakes become a lot lower when you add in something like that. It's sort of, you get plot armor. It allows for characters to die and then come back. I kind of hope James Gunn universe is not in a multiverse. I kind of want it to be a universe where consequences for every action exist in the sole single universe, and lives matter less. I mean, one of the problems Marvel's going to have moving forward, and we'll see how they do this Kang thing. Out in the trailers look great, don't get me wrong, but once you start adding all these layers of multiverse and characters who were dead and they can come back and have I killed you before, and now the timeline is all messed up, the consequences drop. Like at some point, have you watched Dragon Ball Z?
I have not. My daughter has been asking me to watch it.
Well, at some point during the show in Dragon Ball Z, I'm sure a lot of people watching have seen it. It didn't matter if they died anymore. They just put a halo over their head, and they were still basically in the show.
there
So
you
you,
go.
you lose all consequence, and then you see what I'm saying, Ted? Do you
Yeah,
hear me on that at all?
I got you. I feel you. I get it. I get it. Let's call this a gun verse. Let's go ahead and get it out there right
Yeah.
now. Gunn is going to have his own verse. If they're still holding to their promises, the Matt Reeves Batman universe is still going to be its own thing. The Todd Phillips Joker universe is going to be its own thing. Like they initially said, James Gunn's not going to be able to manage any of these projects. And so he's got everything else, basically, except for like those two universes right over there. This is going to be the Gunverse. And I think it'll stay within a single universe. But if James Gunn is being true to his word, his universe will span across movies, TV shows, and video games. And that's not been done before. You can say that video games might have potentially touched on a universe. For example, the Young Justice animated series came out with a video game, and that video game was based within a few years of the show that wasn't seen by general audiences. And we know that the Young Justice has their own dedicated universe. So, like stuff like that, yeah, one thing. But no one's ever done all three. No one's ever done a
Which is
crossover, but across all three different outlets,
which is the wildest
movies.
move ever. To
It's
think that there
crazy.
wasn't individual Avenger games that tied you into what they were doing between the movies is insane to me that they never did that. With the
Yeah,
success of Spider-Man on PS4 and PS5, and even the original Spider-Man game, and how closely that tied in to the movies at the time, it was incredible. And all the money they had behind it, this might be Gunn's opportunity to get that leg up on Marvel. We've been talking about DC's chance, right?
right.
They're, you know, every fighter has what is it called? A fighter's chance, like a, you know, you can take a swing and actually do something that takes the Goliath down, if you will, and that would do it. If he tied in video games well into the
Well,
storyline, that would be incredible. And so I just want to make sure, Ted, I'm getting this right. You're advocating for gun control.
Oh,
uh,
nice.
you might have
I've been
you.
holding on to that one for a minute, so I thought it was a good time to let it
It's
go.
great. You better put that on a shirt or something like right away. Um, I actually am admitting it that I am. I'm going to be disappointed that we will not have a finished Snyderverse or fully realized Snyderverse, but I'm gonna give James his shot, and he's gonna hopefully talk to us, not us directly, but us, the fans, tomorrow, within the next 25 hours and 37 minutes, and 20.
Man,
Yeah, that's right.
I don't
And
even
let
know if
us
I'm
know.
gonna log into Twitter tomorrow. Because
Twitter's
Twitter,
gonna crash tomorrow,
if the
basically.
Snyderverse still exists, it lives very alive on Twitter.
Yeah,
The
but
Snyderverse is alive and well on Twitter.
I get it, but like we talked about, but Dave's already mentioned full reboot. I think that means everything before that is gone. Wade Wilson's in the chat saying a project he would like to see announced is Booster Gold. I'm down with that. Booster would be a
Yeah,
fantastic project going
Isn't
forward.
Booster Gold from with Blue Beetle?
He's probably had some crossover.
they've crossover
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah, they've introduced him in Smallville as well, where he comes back into the from the past or back to the past. But yeah, he's been introduced a couple of
I thought
times.
Booster Gold was like very much in Blue Beetle. Maybe I'm wrong. Is there another Booster song? I don't know.
they've done some stuff for sure.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Let's see here. Other than that, we'll find out. We'll find out. Apparently, this is not breaking news or anything. The expected announcement time is supposedly around noon Eastern tomorrow. Do not hold me to that.
Oof.
Do not hold me to that. But wherever you're at around noon Eastern, log on somewhere,
I know where I'm going to be.
see what James is saying. You know what's very different, and I was thinking about this today. Kevin Feige over at Marvel. It's a lot of synergy over there, right? If a new trailer drops, you know what happens? That trailer's getting shown on Marvel Studios social media pages. Every single movie that has a social
Yeah,
media page is
they push
playing
the button. They
it.
activate the machine.
Absolutely, is playing that same trailer. Disney Plus, all of the other countries that have social media pages for Disney and Marvel, they're all playing the same thing. Tomorrow, it might just be James Gunn's own personal page. It could be just him on a camera talking about this. He could have had somebody in marketing over at Warner Brothers put together a real quick sizzle reel of just titles in some fancy fonts that's like 30 seconds long. Or it just might be a Twitter post. Hey guys, James here. Um, here's
I
3 or 4
hope it's not
movies
just
that we're
that.
gonna work on.
But I don't know if DC needs the flair for the theatric like Marvel does, where we have to launch everything at a con. Because DC has done so bad at this previously. Maybe it's just time to, if we want to compete with Marvel, just not do their thing. I can tell you what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be live when this comes
Ooh.
out tomorrow. So I don't know what y'all's plans are, but
All right.
I'm going to be live, and we're going to be building up some of the things. I think we should talk about some of the anticipated things, some potential things that we've heard, what we think we might hear, react to it live with the people on the Geekcast tomorrow. I mean, I'm at home tomorrow, so I can do it by myself, but I'd rather not.
Oh man, I gotta work. Damn, that would be freaking cool.
We'll get you. We'll send us a quick take from work, and then we'll post it.
Oh, okay.
But this is important to me, because like I love Marvel too. Don't get me wrong. We all love heroes. I mean, anyone who's like anti DC or anti Marvel, no, nobody's really. We all love heroes. That's why we're nerds. So, but DC was my first love because Batman's my favorite hero. I'm anxious about this tomorrow, and I don't know if I can do this by myself. I think I need the support of my friends.
There you- Absolutely, we're here to support you, man. We're here to support
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Well, Kevin Smith had mentioned it before. How DC animation, DC movies, and DC comics are their own separate divisions, and they don't communicate with each other. That's one thing that Marvel has, is where the animated verse and the movies and comics, they tend to communicate to an extent. Maybe with James Gunn taking over, we may start seeing that. I don't know. Just hypothetically throwing out there, like you said, the Gunverse. Is he going to pull a Kevin Feige and start saying, "Hey, we need to start crossing over our story somewhat guidelines"? Because if you really stop and look at Marvel, when Cap died in the comics, then they do the Captain America movie right after that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
and then it's kind of like, what if they did the same thing in the DC universe now that Gunn's
yeah.
taking over?
All I know is no matter what they announce, if Batman is involved whatsoever in any of these properties, whether it be new games, new books, new movies, new shows, there better be some Kevin Conroy Easter egg love inside of any of these new
Oh
properties.
yeah,
That's all
definitely.
I gotta say. I would be very disappointed if there's not a nod here or there in anything that's coming out.
That would be cool. I wouldn't mind that. As far as what's going to get announced tomorrow, that remains to be seen. Tune in tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll be able to talk about it. But I do want to play a game. The game is Price is Right rules, closest without going over.
Budget?
How many projects
Oh.
get
Damn.
announced during this reveal by James Gunn? So, your prediction on how many total projects, whether it's movies, TV series, or video games, or animated shows, how many get announced tomorrow before midnight by James Gunn?
How many get announced,
Closest.
or how many actually are going to end up being made?
How many get announced? Because I also think this is a different culture that DC is entering into. Their word will now be bond, like going forward. They are not going to carelessly announce titles and not do anything with them, like New Gods or
Yeah.
Gotham City Sirens or the Green Lantern Corps or anything that they've talked about in the past. So, I think everything they announce tomorrow is 100% going to get made. All right,
Hmm.
your predictions, Maddie. We'll start with you, man.
6.
All right, all right. Retro Ray.
I say 4.
Interesting. All right. I'm going to.
They split the difference. He's going 5.
I was actually very close to coming to that, but I feel like there's been enough time to where James is putting together a little bit more of a DC slate than we're anticipating. I'm going to say 8.
Oh no, dang.
8 total projects will be announced tomorrow.
The
Do you have
higher
a
the number,
guess?
the less likely they all get made.
Well, remember this year was supposed. Well, this past year was supposed to be DC's year, but everything got pushed back. it got pushed back and canceled pretty much.
How can they even release the Flash? I'm still on that train too, and I haven't been proven wrong yet. I think the Flash doesn't come out.
Well, they just announced that they're going to be doing the trailer. They're going to announce the trailer's going to be like 2 minutes and 30 minutes long.
They're going to see what kind
30,
of back.
30 seconds long or whatever.
And I guarantee you, whatever the response is to that trailer will determine whether or not that movie comes out or not.
I wanted Batgirl. I wanted to see Batgirl, but for them, what they did in Batgirl, where they shelved it like that, I mean, like I said, I like the female characters. Batgirl. I've read the comics. Gail Simone's Batgirl. If y'all haven't read it, Gail Simone is an awesome writer. Like, she literally goes into, she studies what she's writing about psychologists or criminal minds. She goes really into detail and she studies those things and she writes about it. So it's not like she just writes stuff out of the air. What she writes has, background behind it. That's truth. So I would have loved to see her write the Batgirl series, movie or script or whatever. But of course, the separation between Hollywood DC and comics.
Well, it's just they know that obviously Alicia Silverstone got the snub at the Oscars that year. And then the biggest snub of all time at the Oscars was Alicia Silverstone. Maybe they just thought,
Now you're bringing back George Clooney now.
Hey, it's the Schumacher verse. Bring back I want the Schumacher cut.
Like I said, dude, I mean, even Coolio was in that. I mean, you go back into that, it's...
boy, I got to be honest with you.
Uh-oh.
I love this DC talk. I really do.
Yeah.
But I just finished this episode. Is that what's coming next?
That's what's coming next. For all those who have been waiting, let's go ahead and skip past the rest of this DC talk and get into some Last of Us discussion. And real quick, if you yourself are watching this right now or before they announce these potential projects, let us know what you think. What would you like to see revealed? What are you hoping they make in the future? How many projects is James Gunn actually going to announce tomorrow? Go ahead and throw your thoughts in the chat. And now we get to our big topic of the night, what everybody's talking about online, The Last of Us, episode 103, long, long time. You know what? If there's any Linda Ronstadt music songs playing in an episode of anything, it's already a winner in my book. So, but you know how we do. Before we get into our discussion, we always start off with our summary, and it goes a little something like this. Joel and Ellie are 10 miles west of Boston, and they're headed to go see Frank and Bill. Along the way, Joel tells the history of how the pandemic started, taking less than a week to send the whole planet into chaos. Next, we meet Bill. We do a little bit of a flashback here. A doomsday prepper, I mean survivalist, who survived the initial chaos and would later meet Frank, his future life partner. Frank would go on to finding Tess and Joel and become traders with them, but more importantly, they became friends. Fast forward to 2023, Frank is suffering from a terminal illness and decides to end his life with dignity. Bill, who we first met as a paranoid loner, decides to leave this world with Frank, realizing that there's nothing left for him. Before, he was merely surviving, but meeting Frank allowed him to live again. Lastly, Joel and Ellie arrive sometime after their passing, grabbing essentials and a truck that once belonged to Bill. That's my summary. And now let's get into it. Maddie B, since you just finished watching the episode, give us just your general overview of episode 103.
It was hands down one of the most awesome episodes of TV I think I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
It was so freaking cool. And Bill and Frank weren't gay in the video game. I don't think that was a thing.
it was referenced
It was,
that they
but
were in a relationship,
for
but
sure. But I mean,
we didn't see them.
this episode didn't happen in the game. Is what I'm saying.
No, not at all.
Because this was a very romantic episode. Even ended like Romeo and Juliet. He even referenced the tragic suicide, which is obviously a reference to Romeo and Juliet there at the end.
Yeah.
This was this episode and this series overall. I remember last time I think we talked about episodes 1 and 2, or maybe we were just talking about episode 2, and I had mentioned um, everyone in Hollywood had been doing the bratty teen wrong, and I was shouting out Ellie for being a good bratty teen. And when I complain about wokeness in Hollywood, sometimes this is the antidote to that. So when you don't sacrifice inclusivity for the story, right? You can tell something so beautiful that you don't even think about the fact. I wasn't sitting here watching this like, oh my gosh, can you believe they have this gay stuff is in here? I mean, who cares? It was the most beautiful story that I've ever seen. How scared Bill was in the beginning. Frank obviously being a little bit more outgoing and that sort of thing, and the way it time jumped through the story and how they grew to love each other, and also showcasing a lot of Bill's skill, because that's obviously very crucial to the game as well, and why he's an important character. I loved the sidestep that we took away. We started back on the journey, kind of like I had predicted in the last episode that I thought was going to happen, where we were going to have Ellie and Joel sort of just getting to know each other a little bit. They got that done for us pretty quickly there, and maybe I think it took about 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we entered this beautiful love story, one of the best love stories I've seen on TV in a long time. And Lauren is sitting next to me and weeping her eyes out. I welled up a few times. It was awesome. And there was some brutal shit in there too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it had everything to it. It didn't detract from the story at all. It only adds to what we have going on here. I mean, it's a 13 out of 10 episode for me. Like, hopefully there's some awards won on this episode alone.
I could easily see a supporting
Yeah.
actor nomination for I really hope Nick Offerman. He was incredible. Like
Oh my gosh.
it's not
You could feel every emotion that he was showing.
everything.
He was playing me like a violin the whole time.
It's not only great that you get this genuine love story and you kind of see how it all starts, but Nick Offerman's character, who, like he mentioned, like this was his first time kind of opening himself romantically to another male, and so like to have all that being put onto the screen from Nick, it was just like it was moving. You're almost cheering the guy on because, like, yeah, you're living your life. I mean, you're
Well,
not trying to hide it. You have a reason to live.
he's a recluse.
He is a
And
recluse.
he's also part of a very macho, typical scene, right? Like preppers and doomsday preppers are typically heavy conservative, very, maybe even like libertarian is probably a better way to put it, but very much macho man stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe he just never felt comfortable exuding that. And when Frank sat down to play Linda Ronstadt,
Whew.
and Bill was like, no, that's not how you play it, and played it even softer. And he almost like whispering it. It was, remember back in the 80s and 90s how they used to try to introduce like gay couples
Yeah.
because it wasn't so prevalent. So you
Sure.
kind of had to whisper about it. You wouldn't just come out and say, hey, daddy, I want you. It was much more like you kind of had to be a little covert about it. And that
Yeah.
scene right there, given their age range and the stuff that Frank was into, I thought was so well executed and real for a macho man to sort of be like, I am in love with men. I've been in these situations before with a woman once, sort of thing. Very scared when they were hooking up or whatever. I just thought everything came off so authentic and so real, and I loved it.
Absolutely. Retro Ray, your thoughts about 103?
It was definitely a good episode. I mean, like I said, it didn't follow the game. So for me and my wife watching it, I got her hooked from watching the first episode. So now we're watching it together. She's like enthused to watch it. And then when she found out he was in there and she loves him in Park and Rec,
Yeah.
so she would really, dude, like, don't get me wrong, my wife, I don't cry, but it had her crying in that episode. So that's what she tells me. She doesn't understand. We watch movies with her, and I don't cry in movies. She goes, "You never cry in movies." I'm like, I don't know. I just don't have that. You know what I mean? But no, she, especially without spoilers. Of course, you guys know what happened right before the end. It threw her for a loop because she thought that happened, but then it didn't, and it jumps, and then you see something later. Yeah, so it really threw her for a loop when she saw that happen. She was like, "No, no, no, no." But yeah, it's a definitely good episode. It sucks that we ain't gonna see that character anymore because I felt like he would have played a big role in that where we're at in the apocalyptic,
Yeah.
world. The way he set up the
Yeah.
radio code and all that stuff like that. It was pretty cool, man.
He
I,
had it down. I play a video game that is very similar to this. It's called 7 Days to Die. You're building your fort, you're building your defenses and all that, and Bill would have been perfect as a character in my game. Can we just acknowledge the fact that we're watching what is essentially a zombie series, and we just had arguably one of the most beautiful, incredibly written love stories of any TV show, honestly, in this show. Like it's quite an achievement. It was surprising to say the least.
it's so
It's
layered, Ted. It's so
it's
layered.
Yeah.
multi-layered, and
Like
again, I
again,
hope we get an award nomination of any kind for Nick Offerman. What
I mean,
really was hitting me was his last sort of emotional reaction,
on the couch,
hearing on the couch,
yeah.
Yeah.
seeing what he was going through. Oh man, that was just he's just eating up these scenes. And nothing against the other guy, who's fantastic in the White Lotus. I'm sure you recognize that, Matty B.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So just these two
You can
incredible
always take a pill.
incredible actors just like eating up this show in every scene. It's phenomenal. It's great.
Um,
I there
so
is a 1% of me that is going to be a little bit disappointed that we're not seeing Nick Offerman on the show anymore. However, perhaps they're gonna do it like Tess, and every now and then we get a flashback, and so
Oh, that would be
we're
cool.
maybe we'll see Nick
definitely getting
Offerman.
flashbacks of
There
Bill.
you go. Yeah, I think
100%.
that's a possibility because
He's
we've
gonna
already
open something in
seen
a glove compartment. We're gonna go back 4 years. He's gonna say 4 years before.
yeah. And then I'll be satisfied because I was disappointed when we lost Anna Torv, but then we got more Anna in this one. We got more Tess in this episode. So if it's something they do, I'll be happy with that. But all in all, incredible, incredible episode. And I hope everybody, whether you're a fan of the games or not, or if you're a fan of this show or not, I just hope you find something to appreciate about this because it's not every day that we even see a story this beautiful or genuine in a TV series that involves a man and a woman. Like they're not
The
just
Notebook wasn't as romantic as this episode.
no, not at all.
I mean, so when we're talking about like layering, so this is what I mean. Like when because I'm a TV aficionado. You guys, are much more into comic books and those sort of things. I didn't read a ton of comic books growing up, so there's a lot of things in this show that this our show that I can't bring to the table. But when it comes to good TV, I have a good thermometer of what's really good TV, and
Sure.
it's always layers. And I take it back to this episode. Why do you think this episode is so good? Blah blah blah. Even just the scene. So when they're running the loops, and you can see that Bill's getting a little tired of running. Frank shows him the strawberries, and it's such a beautiful moment. Even when they're just eating a strawberry again for the first time, they hadn't had one in so long. And then Bill looks over to Frank and says, "I'm sorry, I'm just getting older than you." And he was like apologetic about the fact that he was getting older and was worried that he was going to die before Frank. That was what it was leading into. Then we do a time jump 10 years where Frank is sick and Bill is taking care of him. So I mean, just all of the layers and the way that it's a slow churn, but then a time jump. You know what I mean? So like part of it churns really slow, but then there's other times where it goes really fast, and it does suck that. I mean, we could have had these characters throughout the entire series and been totally okay with it.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, we should get a spinoff. Hey,
yeah,
HBO, you
we'll
want to
get
make some
We'll
money?
get more Bill. We'll get more Bill for sure. It has to if it's going to keep anything but the game. So maybe it's just going to do some flashbacks, and maybe Joel has to remember something, or they're in a tight spot and he remembers something that Bill said. Um, but the layers in this really, really touched me and hit me in a way that I haven't watched TV like in a long time. House of Dragons got close. There's been a few things we watched that I was like, man, this is pretty good. This is the first episode of TV I've probably seen in 2 years that was like, boom,
Yeah,
that's how you do TV right there. A master class on how to completely divert away from the storyline. And it's just really good. So I'm geeking out over it because I just finished it, but I thought it was awesome. And this show and HBO just continues to prove that they know TV more than anybody else.
they had such an interesting dynamic. Even if you were iffy on the romantic stuff, just their banter, just the quips between them, it was so damn funny. It's so entertaining. Their relationship was so lighthearted. It gave you so much joy just to watch them trying to live this somewhat unique and happy life in the middle of like the end of the world, but they have their block of happiness and sunshine. It's
Well, they
just
have a block of
it's
happiness. They have a wine shop. They have a boutique.
that's
This
what
thing
I'm
is
talking about.
protected on all sides. At the end of the episode, I'm like, Joel, why are you at? Maybe we just chill here for a little bit.
That's what
And
I'm saying. They're set up, right?
I mean, that's what else are you hoping for in this scenario? I mean, I
Yo,
know I know that he needs to find his brother,
that's
right?
it. Yeah, that's it.
But his brother also has the radio codes. Maybe just hold out there for 2-3 weeks and just try to see if you can use the radio to find something. Maybe just stock up again and get your protein right, eat some foods, relax a little bit, maybe get to know this girl that you're going to be carrying around.
Yeah,
But if he gets his brother, I mean, where else are you going back? They have to come back there.
I hope
I mean,
so.
that's basically the Garden of Eden as far as where they're concerned right now.
Hopefully, it's still there when they get back. But yeah, I completely agree with you.
And
Definitely.
you called it, well, I can't say you called it because we know the storyline, but you did mention that in this episode, it would come out that the flour and grain was a part of the reason why the pandemic spread so fast. So you get a point there, I guess, even though we already knew the storyline. So we'll give you a half point there on that one, Ted. But
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was something they talked about on this episode, and then it was kind of corroborated on the last one too. Um, last kind of thoughts about the episode from everybody. First, I'll just say that for people who might think that this was kind of unnecessary to deviate maybe a little too much from the plot and the main characters, I would say that it helps reinforce what Joel is struggling with, right? Because him and Bill, they're not all that different. Even like to this day, like we saw the flashbacks and they were beating you over the head with it. Like these are the same characters. They're both super cautious about everybody they come into contact with. They're not easy to open up with new people or try new things or take any drastic risks. Like they're very careful about everything they do, including letting others into, their world, their own little circle here. But Bill was able to do that, and he found a new value out of it. As I said in my summary, before Frank, he was surviving. After Frank, after meeting Frank, is when he actually started living again. And perhaps that is a lesson for Joel to learn, that letting people in is worth the risk, even though he's not that much of a risk taker. And it's another lesson for Joel to learn. And it's enough for me to solidify its value for this first season, seeing this episode and what they went through. And also just because Bill's a favorite of people who watch the or who play the video game, and getting just more backstory from him, I think is always a win in my book. So yeah. Retro Ray, your final thoughts on episode 3.
I really liked where you kind of see like Ellie. Now, question I had to ask you guys. So, timeline for Ellie, was she a baby when all this went down? Because her not knowing about airplanes, knowing about the
She
car.
was born after this, so this is I believe the first episode. The initial event takes place in 2003. This takes
Yeah,
place in 2023. I'd place her at like 14, maybe 15.
yeah.
So
So she was probably born
yeah,
like
so
after the everything
yeah,
went
so
down.
she knows nothing other than this. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, like I said, I like that how they, she's freaking out at the video game. She knows about it, but she's never played it. Same thing about the airplane, the car when she got in there, and he's having to get the seatbelt for her, and he's kind of looking at her like, "What are you doing?" It's cool because it's like you're seeing a little kid experiencing everything for the first time. But then also when you hear Bill say towards the end where he's like, "The world needs people like me and you to protect people like," well, of course, in the thing, it's basically he's talking about Frank and then talking about Tess. But of course, she's gone already. But that right there was cool in itself because it's true. You know what I mean? There's different people who have different things that they're good at, and what Bill and Joel have, they're unique people,
Absolutely.
and that's pretty much what makes them who they are. They know what needs to get done and do it because you could even see Bill's face when he's telling him what he wants to do. And even though Bill knows it hurts, he's gonna do what his wishes are. Even though he knows it's gonna hurt him as well. But then also where the change, like you said, the layers, where he decides to, do his thing as well without giving spoilers too much. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Overall, the episode between those little things like that was so cool because from someone who's never played the game, and then you're learning these characters and learning, you know, like he tells her, "Oh, you went to school, you didn't, learn about this." So it's like you're learning everything as you're going as well, just like Ellie is. You know what I mean? I loved it, and I can't wait to see the next episode.
Absolutely. Maddie B, final thoughts.
I thought that this episode was important to thaw the ice. And again, Pedro Pascal has a tendency for these characters now that we've seen him in The Mandalorian as well. We saw, but seriously, we saw kind of a
Yeah,
similar progression in character and learning to care about something, sort of thing. But he has a cold block of ice. We've seen flashbacks to a lot of things that he's went to. We haven't seen his daughter in a flashback at all yet. There's a very cold block of ice around his heart. And I mean, you can't even melt a snowball with a lighter. I mean, you need a flamethrower to melt the ice he has around his heart. This episode was the beginning of the flames that starts to thaw that ice around his heart a little bit. The story needed this in order for him to start to warm up to Ellie because he's going to have to end up loving her like a daughter. And we needed a break from this cold, dark world for that to happen. And that's exactly what this is. This episode is a flamethrower on the ice block around the heart of Joel. And that's where we're really going to see some real character development here. this episode, if you think it's a deviation from the story, this episode might be the most important part of the story because of how it's going to affect Joel with Ellie moving forward as they go back into this cold world after we sort of just went through this very heartwarming story, even though it ended with them both dying. But they were old men, and they were both very comfortable in their decisions. I wouldn't say it's tragic by any means. That's selfish of us of just thinking we want to see these characters more. But
Yeah.
as an emotional experiment, I think that this episode is absolutely vital to the story, and we need to start to defrost Joel a little bit.
Here, here. Anybody watching, or if you're listening to us on the podcast version of this show, we want to hear from you guys. Let us know what you thought about episode 103. Long time. Your favorite moment, maybe? How much of a miserable crying mess were you guys after this episode? That's what we really want to know. Let us know
Mm.
in the chat, or you can always message us on the contact page of our website at www.countdowntothegeekcast.com. And real quick, just for fun, because this popped up on Twitter today, these two guys in the same show, just magic. Pedro Pascal, Nick Offerman, being awesome. Look at these gentlemen just having fun. Look at that.
But it's just a picture like that just goes to show how extremely talented you have to be at this level of acting. They were probably just goofing around, talking about regular stuff, joking, laughing around, and then get into like some of the most serious shit that you could ever possibly try to portray on camera. I love seeing stuff like this from behind the scenes, even though it may pull you from the character a little bit, but just joking and laughing around before you literally get into some of the most deepest, complex emotions that humans experience.
So cool. These gentlemen are so cool. Can't
Yeah.
wait for the next episode, but my God, like, what are they gonna do now? How do you follow up with something like that? Just remains to be seen.
I think Ellie has to
Um,
save Joel. That she got the gun here in the last episode
right?
without him knowing,
True.
and his tone about the gun changed a little bit. So you can already see him starting to thaw out a little bit. In the beginning, he didn't want her to have a gun because he was scared that she was going to try to kill him. That's how he is. He got more of a dad tone about it as this episode kind of went on, and now that we're 3 episodes deep, he has more of just a dad tone about it. It's more of a protective thing. No, you shouldn't have a gun. We shouldn't be doing these things. And I think the only way you can really top this is for them to get into something crazy next episode where she just has to pull out the fucking gun and cap somebody. And but it's gonna be tough to top this episode. I'm not gonna lie. We'll see.
So,
Absolutely.
question to ask. So, the basement, when she goes into the basement and she just plays it off and doesn't tell Joel what she did
Yeah.
down there. What were your thoughts on
I
that?
thought she was trying to she knew she needed to get her first kill. I think she is more aware than he wants her to be because he's protective as a father who lost his
Yeah.
daughter, of how cold this world can be. And she doesn't fully trust him yet either, although she's more trusting of him than he is of her right now. But I think she knows that she needed to face that fear and she needed to get that first kill because there's going to be a lot of that along the way. And the quicker, and
Yeah.
while it's pinned down, while she doesn't have to face it head on, looking it in the eyes and getting it done, I think was something she knew she had to do to grow for herself. And I think that's even highlighted, and I don't want to be sexist talking about this. I think that's even highlighted by her bringing the tampons up. It's what is a tampon a sign of in a girl that age? Becoming a woman, growing up.
Yeah.
And I think that was subtly thrown in there. I think that whole scene was just about her sort of growing up, facing a fear, realizing that she has to be a woman now and, can't be a kid anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely. I think that it is not only her getting older, but teenagers are just so damn curious. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
You'll tell them to do one thing, and I can attest because I have a teenager in my house. You tell them to do one thing, they either don't hear you at all, or they'll do the exact opposite sometimes. And sometimes you just have to let people in that sort of age range figure stuff out, figure out life, in a manner of speaking. And so this is her figuring out things, and it's not taking too much of a risk because the zombie was subdued and crushed by all that debris. But she needs to know. She needs to, like Matt kind of said, get it out of her system. But also, like, she's going to have to get exposure to this world. She's been an QZ her whole life, and now she's outside these walls, and she needs to get exposed to what's really out here because she needs to be able to take care of herself. And whether Joel likes it or not, he's going to have her have some hands-on training, and this was a little bit of that hands-on training, and you know, kind of doing the action and stuff like that. So probably expect more stuff like that, and hopefully she's not gonna pull a Carl from Walking Dead and just like put herself in like harm's way for no reason whatsoever. But hopefully it's all well thought out and she's not taking too many risks. But we'll see what happens.
Mr. Beating that little thing of pudding at the end.
Absolutely. We're gonna.
So now this is me
Uh-oh.
overthinking. So how do you think that zombie got down there?
No idea.
You know what I mean? It's in his basement, collapsed, concrete. So it's like, what was the person doing in his basement? And not only that, I mean, like I said, I overthink things. So not only that, like the whole being connected to the hive, where how did it not call more,
Well, there
hive
wasn't
people
any
or
fibers on the
zombie?
ground, so I think
Okay, so that's what
yeah.
it is.
And
Okay,
so in the bunker, when she opened up the grate, she dropped a rock. She put the flashlight down, and then realized, okay, cool, this is just a basement. I can hop in here. When she hops in there, you can see a pile of sawdust, basically, and a frame for stairs. So this building we know is a cache because of Joel has hidden things in there. Pickers have come through there. It's kind of a place that you can go stash things. So whoever was in there last, they got caught into a situation. Whatever happened, and
gotcha.
they trapped the zombie down there. They destroyed the stairs so the zombie couldn't get back out, and then covered up the top of the lid with everything else. Is what I'm
There you
thinking.
go. There you go.
Gotcha.
You
See,
thought this overnight. You were like dreaming what happened to that
and you
zombie.
just watched it, man.
Oh yeah, that's right. You just watched it.
I'm
That's
fresh.
fantastic. There you go. There you go.
Nice.
Yeah. Again, we want to hear from you guys. Let us know what you thought about the episode. Can't wait to see what happens next week. Before we get out of here, we got a few Geeky Weekly headlines to talk about. And this first one I know would be huge if JC was here. He would like to talk about it. But speaking of zombie TV shows, Michael Cutlets from The Walking Dead, you knew him as Abraham, is going to play Lex Luthor in the next season of Superman and Lois. Will he shave his head? Let's wait and see. But for you, gentlemen, just your quick thoughts on Abraham being cast as Lex Luthor. Your thoughts about the casting, Ray?
It's interesting. I was hoping they were going to cast Rosenbaum
Ooh,
because there was talks about it, but I'm interested to see what he's because, like I said, there's different versions of Lex because you've got Lex that's kind of like Kingpin to an extent. Then you've got the other Lex where he's like the scientist and makes the suits. So I wonder what version he's going to bring to Superman and Lois. You know what I mean? So I'm very interested.
Matty B.
It's got my attention.
If he shaves his head, maybe, but I like Superman and Lois pretty good. I mean, for the melodrama CW shows, Superman and Lois is more tolerable than some of the other ones. I know JC loves the melodrama, so but I don't know. It just depends on how they cast it. It depends on what kind of Lex Luthor he is. I mean, we've had how many different iterations of Luthor at this point? If they kept him a little bit more grounded to earth a little bit, I think it would fit into the show well. We don't need him in a mechanical suit. We don't need him as a young Mark Zuckerberg type character like he was in BVS. If they keep him a little bit more grounded to earth, I think it could come off well for that character for sure.
I don't know if this is the right answer, but I could think of 5 live action Luthers. We've had 1, 2, 3 in film, and then 2 in live action TV
Yeah, you have what,
shows.
Gene Hackman, right?
Hackman. You
And then we
had
had
I can picture his face.
what's the kid's name who played in BVS? I can't remember his name, but he played Mark Zuckerberg and everything. He basically played Mark Zuckerberg in BVS.
Yeah, so we had we had Gene, we had the Superman Returns Lex Luthor, and then we had the BVS Lex Luthor or the Snyderverse Lex Luthor. That's 3. Then we had the Smallville Luthor, and then we actually had a CW Luthor who was played by John Cryer, and he actually did a pretty decent job.
Yeah,
So
and then there was
those are the 5 I'm thinking of.
and then the HBO show, the one we were just watching, Young Justice. There was another Luther in there as well.
Oh, Titans, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, Titans. That's right. Yeah,
There was another Luthor. So yeah, 6 so far, and looks like Michael will be number 7.
yeah, and just keep them grounded.
And then-
Gene Hackman's Luther was so good because he was still a very grounded character. He almost played a mix between a Lex Luthor and kind of how Jack Nicholson played a Joker a little bit. Like it was everything was kind of a game, but he was still just a normal dude, kind of. Um, I just keep him ground level. Just have him be a genius, outsmarting Superman on every level, and really putting him in precarious situations. But let's not go over the top with it. And if
Yeah.
they do that, then I'm cool because Superman and Lois is still kind of grounded as far as the universe goes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the one I would see with his body structure and everything, I would see him to play Lex from Justice League. I would see him as Clancy Brown. That's who I would see him with his body structure, the attitude that Lex had in Justice League. I could probably see him pulling that one off.
That would be dope. I can see that happening. Let's see here.
Oh, it's Goldeneye on Game Pass.
I was just pulling it up right now, and then my window like closed on me. But if you haven't heard the news, it's no longer on Nintendo 64. Yes, that is right. GoldenEye 007 is now on the Nintendo Switch. Whatever their subscription online service is, as well as Xbox Live Game Pass, or maybe it's just the Xbox Game Pass is probably what it is.
I
But
have Game Pass,
yeah, look for it, download it. I'm warning you at right now. Be forewarned. There have been reports of it being a little buggy, which is maybe expected on the initial launch. Hopefully, they throw in some patches in the very near future to kind of get a more stable.
The machine is so much more powerful than the game. I mean,
That's what it is.
there's gonna be some glitches involved there, but there are some fathers and sons who need some bonding time,
There you
and
go.
and the dad just cannot keep up with Call of Duty and wants to relive the glory days, and this is hands down. And I never had an N64. My friends had an N64. I had Sega and PlayStation 1 and those types of things. But GoldenEye, as far as my childhood goes, one of the greatest games ever released, period. And the soundtrack, incredible. I think they unleashed some, like, one of the first times I remember, like, real online first person shooter gameplay that was executed well was GoldenEye.
Absolutely.
And I think this is awesome. I had the second it dropped, because I play on Game Pass all the time. I don't really pay for new games, but I'll download stuff from Game Pass all the time and play with my friends. I had like 5 messages of everyone being like, "Hey, boom, download GoldenEye. We're playing it immediately." So I have it downloaded. I haven't played it yet, but it is currently on the Matty B Xbox right now. Um,
Who's your go-to character? I'm gonna guess Odd Job.
Actually, no. Dude, you can't just call me out like that. Well, yeah, no, Odd Job is my guy.
Odd Job, 007, Jaws. Jaws is in there, right? Or what's his name? Something
Uh,
like that. The
I
guy
can't.
with
I
the
literally haven't played this game. I played this game briefly when I was in college. Somebody brought their N64 from home, and we used to get stoned and play all the old N64 games. But that was the last time I played GoldenEye. I haven't touched it in so long. I can't really remember.
can't wait to get that golden gun, baby. Love me that golden gun. That's all I gotta say about that. But yeah, you guys check it out, download it. Let us know. Is it really buggy as kind of some folks are saying, or are you having a pretty decent time with it? Let us know
Well, you know how
in the
bratty gamers
comments.
are. There could be
Oh, for
one
sure.
small little glitch, and oh gosh, this is the worst.
Lastly, just want to get into some events that are coming up, starting with one that's just around the corner in a couple of weeks. Love at First Bite, the Valentine's Day horror market, featuring some pretty dope cast members from the Walking Dead series. Addie Miller, who we all know as probably the first zombie on a major television show, Adrian Callie Turner, David Morrissey, the governor, Seth Gilliam, fantastic guy, and Ross Marquand, who I recently just spoke with at last year's superhero car show and Comic Con. Fantastic lineup. You're going to want to get there super early. It's going to be a massive event. I promise you that. But it's great because it's not as big as your normal convention. It's very unique and intimate, and you get a lot of one-on-one time with the guests there. So prepare just to have a great time, all in all. And the vendors are fantastic. Not only do you get these five, but they just announced Travis Love, who's not only in the Walking Dead universe, but he's also in the Marvel universe. He's actually been, I believe, in both Black Panther films, if I'm not mistaken. So Travis Love will also be there, February 11th and 12th, at the Wonderland Mall of Americas, which is at the intersection of I-10 and 410 on the north side of town. So check it out.
I'm thinking about getting a black painter's cap and a black polo with a turquoise necklace, and just seeing if I can convince him that I actually am Robert Rodriguez. I'm just going to see if I can do it.
I think you can.
I
I
think
believe in you.
he is there. I think he's quite a bit taller than I am, but maybe I'll have to shave the beard down a little bit, but we'll see if we can pull it off. But Ross is an awesome dude. So if you have a chance, when you meet celebrities, sometimes you're worried if they're just going to sign it, kind of send you on your way or whatever. I know for a fact, at least, that Ross is well worth the time that you would spend in line to wait to go see him. So if you're a fan of The Walking Dead, go check it out. And this is it the same company that's been putting all of these? They are killing it, Ted.
They are killing it.
And
I love it.
they're getting the perfect level of like A B star with some very cult classic C stars with some very cult classic D. I mean, the way they're putting their their buffet of or palette or whatever you would call it of a guest list, they're actually on par with something. Like these guys could work with major cons to um, help them curate guest lists, if you will. They do really well on a small budget.
You're not wrong, and I actually talked about that with one of their staff members this past weekend because they did a wrestling convention. Shout out to Big Mike, who did an interview with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. And it was a fantastic interview. It's up on our YouTube channel right now. Go check that out. But I was talking to them about, how well they're doing. And you're right. They fit in that perfect spot where, these aren't the biggest names on these TV shows or these movies, but they're just right under those folks. So the big stars are going to all the big conventions, but they're getting kind of that next level. and it's enough to bring people from around the country. When we went to the Lost Boys convention, it was the 30th anniversary, I think, or 25th anniversary of the Lost Boys,
People from
and
everywhere.
people were flying in from all over the country. Met a woman from New Jersey that flew in that day just because it was like the premier Lost Boys reunion event. Nobody had done anything kind of close to that. So yeah, it was fantastic. Lastly, before we get out of here, I have to also call out David Yost in-store signing at our favorite neighborhood comic shop,
Really?
Dragon's Lair Comics and Fantasy, the Alamo Ranch location, March 12th from 12 to 4. You're going to want to get there early. This is going to be fantastic. It's coinciding with the 30th anniversary of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and David is just, he's an OG. He's one of the best. He's a fan favorite. And bring your merch and get in line early because, like I said, he's a big draw, and you're going to want to meet him. So, Dragon's Lair Comics and Fantasy. For more information, look them up at Dragon's Lair at Alamo Ranch on Facebook. And yeah, we'll probably see you guys there. Hopefully, we can get a few minutes with David before he actually does the signing. So, we're very interested
Well, I mean, he was
in
very
being
much
there.
the Donatello of the Power Rangers. Um,
Absolutely. Affirmative.
yeah, and like and we all know, in rest in peace, God bless his soul, JDF. But JDF was very accessible. He was a lot of places all the time. It's not all the time that you see some of these other OG characters who are out and accessible, especially at David Yost. I've been to a lot of conventions. I've never seen David Yost at one. That doesn't mean that he doesn't go or that nobody could ever see him ever. But is like, as compared to JDF, I mean, you're not gonna really see him as often. It's worth the trip out there to Dragon's Lair for sure. Great friends of the show.
Absolutely. We love Dragon's Lair. We've done a dozen live shows from there, and we'll do a dozen more because they're fantastic. And they also participated in our Ghostbusters of San Antonio nationwide toy drive. So shout out to them. They're one of the best.
Ted,
Um,
let's be honest. You're in love with them. It's your favorite place in the world. Just get it out there.
I only buy my comics from Dragon's Lair. I will say that. And I also bought my Ghostbusters cookbook from Dragon's Lair. So it's not
There you
just
go.
comics you can get from there. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Daniel says, I'll be there. I would expect nothing less, sir. I would expect nothing less than you being there. So if you have any questions, be sure to reach out to them, or you can always reach out to us and we'll help you any way we can. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Countdown to the Geekcast. Be sure to tune in on Wednesday when me and Maddie will travel back to the universe of the Ghostbusters and talk some more Ghostbusters news. And on Thursday of this week, you'll want to tune in to the WrestleCast as they recap what was arguably one of the top five, maybe, Royal Rumbles ever. It was just so damn spectacular. I was on the edge of my seat at the very end, and it was in our hometown. Just big props to the crowd that was there at the Alamo Dome on Saturday because they brought it. And the men's Royal Rumble was probably like the least interesting thing that happened, but the women's Royal Rumble was fantastic. The heavyweight match was incredible, and the way it ended was just one for the ages. It was just absolutely fantastic. So be sure to check out the WrestleCast this Thursday on Facebook as well as YouTube.
But how about that Logan Paul move?
That was also
I
pretty
mean,
impressive. I'm not gonna
I'm,
lie.
I'm not the biggest fan of the Paul brothers of all time. I'm not a big fan of clowns, and they're kind of entertainers in that way. But he's got this kind of wrestling thing figured out a little bit. These guys are athletes. That's one of the sickest moves I've seen in pro wrestling in a long time. The both off the top turnbuckle.
And Paul really went for it. You saw him like kind of swing back, like really go into it, but
Yeah.
they just crashed in midair. And it was probably the coolest thing that happened overall. That was like the most memorable moment. or just right behind Sami Zayn hitting Roman Reigns with a chair. But those two right there, 1 and 2, I would say. Awesome. For the Geekcast, my name is Ted, aka Steady. Joining me on this stream is our buddy Retro Ray
Nice talking again, guys.
and my partner in crime. You know him as Matty B.
We did it.
Another can crushed. Thanks for watching, folks. See you soon. Peace.